Have you ever noticed how certain people never really leave your mind, no matter how much time passes or how hard you try to move forward? The person you keep thinking about is not just someone your mind is randomly bringing up. There is a reason they keep returning to your thoughts, even when life is busy or when you are trying to focus on something else. It does not happen only because of loneliness, boredom, or emotional vulnerability. Something deeper is keeping their presence alive inside your inner world, in quiet and unexpected ways. They show up when your mind is at rest. In those silent moments before sleep, when everything slows down, or in the pauses between thoughts during an ordinary day. You might be working, talking to someone, or simply feeling okay, and suddenly they appear without warning. Their face, their voice, or a memory connected to them rises naturally, without effort. It feels spontaneous, like it comes from somewhere deeper than intention. You may have tried to push these thoughts away. You may have told yourself it is time to move on, to stop revisiting something that feels unclear or unresolved. You may have reminded yourself of the distance, the silence, or the confusion between you. And still, even after all of that, they return. Even when you feel certain for a while that you have let go, they quietly come back into your awareness again. This does not mean something is wrong with you, and it is not a sign that you are stuck or unable to grow. It simply points to the fact that something between you was not fully resolved in your emotional experience. Something real was felt, even if it was never clearly spoken or defined. Connections like this are not built on logic alone or controlled by willpower. They form in deeper layers of memory, emotion, and shared experience. When someone keeps appearing in your thoughts without effort, it often reflects an emotional imprint that has not fully settled yet. Something meaningful was exchanged between you, even if it was subtle, unspoken, or incomplete. That is why the mind does not fully release it so easily. It is also possible that they think of you too, even if there is no communication right now. People do not always express what they feel. Silence does not always mean absence. Many emotions stay unspoken because of confusion, fear, timing, or uncertainty. Someone might care deeply, but still not know how to act on it, or how to express it outwardly. So those feelings remain hidden beneath the surface. This is why emotions can feel like they move in invisible ways. You might suddenly feel warmth, sadness, longing, or a wave of emotion without knowing exactly why. You may sense their presence in your thoughts, or feel connected even across distance and silence. These experiences are not always easy to explain, but they are part of how deeply emotional bonds can linger in the mind and heart. You are not weak for feeling this. You are simply human. Deep feelings do not switch off just because you decide they should. The heart does not follow strict timelines. When something touches you in a meaningful way, it leaves a lasting imprint, and that imprint takes time to soften, understand, or transform. This does not mean you are meant to wait forever or pause your life for something uncertain. It simply means what you experienced had real emotional weight. Confusion does not cancel connection. Silence does not erase feeling. Distance does not automatically mean absence of emotion on the other side. Sometimes, distance comes from fear, inner conflict, or uncertainty in the other person, not from a lack of care. You may never receive all the answers you want, or those answers may arrive in unexpected ways later on. But your experience still matters. The thoughts you have are not meaningless, and the emotions you feel are not wasted. They are part of something that touched you deeply and shaped your inner world in some way. If this person continues to stay in your thoughts, it may simply mean that the emotional experience between you has not fully settled yet. Not everything resolves quickly, and not everything is meant to. Some connections take time to quiet down within the heart, even long after external contact has changed or ended. So be gentle with yourself through this. Do not judge your thoughts or force your emotions to disappear on a strict timeline. Clarity often comes slowly, and understanding unfolds naturally when you allow it space. Sometimes the purpose of a connection is not just about whether it lasts, but about what it awakens in you, how it teaches you about your capacity to feel, to care, and to grow through emotional experience. And even if things remain unclear for now, that connection still had meaning. What mattered once does not simply disappear. It transforms with time, and your heart continues to process it until it eventually finds peace with it in its own way. There is something in this story that never really reached a clear ending, and that is often what disturbs the mind the most. Not what is finished, but what feels open, uncertain, and emotionally unresolved. You may notice that this person appears in your thoughts at unexpected times, especially during moments when life feels good. When something goes right, when you feel a sense of joy, achievement, or peace, they might be the first person your mind turns toward. Almost instinctively, you imagine sharing it with them. Even if the moment itself is small, it carries emotional weight because of what they represent to you. And it is not only their presence you feel drawn toward. Sometimes it is their world, their emotions, their inner state, the sense of them as a whole person. This kind of pull can happen when two people have shared something meaningful that was never fully resolved in experience or expression. What many people do not realize is that emotional connections do not simply disappear when communication stops. Silence does not automatically erase attachment. Distance does not erase what was built over time. When a connection is formed on a deeper emotional level, it leaves an imprint on memory and the unconscious mind. And the unconscious does not work on logic or deadlines. It works through emotion, meaning, and unfinished experience. So if they still appear in your thoughts, it may be because something within you still feels that the story is not fully complete. Not in a dramatic sense, but in an emotional sense. Something was felt, something was real, and something was never fully settled. This is also why the connection can feel confusing. When love is clear, it tends to settle. But when love is mixed with uncertainty, distance, fear, or timing issues, it often remains suspended somewhere between holding on and letting go. In that space, emotions do not fully resolve, they linger. Sometimes, fear plays a quiet role in this. Fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of repeating old emotional pain, fear of change or uncertainty about what a next step would even mean. Fear does not always destroy connection, it often delays it. It can create distance even when closeness still exists emotionally beneath the surface. That is why certain bonds continue to show up in your mind long after logic says they should have faded. Not because they are meant to control your present, but because they carried meaning that your mind has not fully integrated yet. You may also find yourself questioning their silence, wondering if they care, wondering why they have not reached out, wondering why something that felt real was not followed by action. But love is not always expressed in direct or visible ways. People often feel deeply while still struggling to act on it. Some carry emotional wounds from the past that make them cautious. Some are caught between desire and responsibility. Some do not feel emotionally ready. Some are afraid of being hurt or hurting someone else. And some simply do not know how to translate what they feel into action at the right time. So silence is not always the absence of feeling, and distance is not always the absence of connection. This is also why the mind tends to bring them up in quiet moments. At night, when everything slows down, or during ordinary pauses in the day when your attention is not occupied. These thoughts are not forced. They rise on their own from deeper emotional layers where memory and feeling are stored. And there is another layer to this experience. When you think about them, you are not only remembering who they are, you are also remembering who you were when you felt connected to them. Certain people awaken parts of us that feel alive, open, or deeply seen. When that connection becomes distant, it can feel like losing access to something within yourself as well. That is why the longing can feel heavier than simple attraction. It is not only about the person, it is also about the emotional version of you that existed in that connection. Distance between two people who care is not always caused by lack of feeling. Often it is timing, fear, internal conflict, or circumstances that have not aligned yet. And when emotions remain active without closure, the mind tends to keep the connection alive in thought until something within it finds understanding. This is also why your emotions may fluctuate. One moment you feel strong and detached, and the next, a memory pulls everything back again. That back and forth does not mean you are confused. It means your rational mind is trying to move forward, while your emotional memory is still processing what happened. Healing does not always come from forcing yourself to forget. More often, it comes from understanding why something still holds emotional weight and what it meant to you in the first place. Sometimes these connections remain because there is still something to understand. Sometimes because communication was never fully completed. And sometimes because both people are still moving toward clarity at different emotional speeds. If they feel distant, yet still emotionally present in your mind, it may also reflect their own internal process. They may feel something too, but be held back by fear, uncertainty, or life circumstances they have not resolved within themselves. Not everyone knows how to move directly toward what they feel, even when the feeling is real. Love does not always move in clear, decisive steps. Sometimes it pauses. Sometimes it hesitates. Sometimes it stays quiet until the conditions inside a person feel safe enough to act. But what matters most is not trying to predict every outcome. What matters is understanding what this experience is revealing within you, about your emotions, your attachment, your patience, your boundaries, and your capacity to feel deeply. Whether this connection leads back into your life in a new form or slowly transforms into peaceful acceptance, your feelings are not meaningless. You are not wrong for still thinking about them. You are responding to something that mattered on a deeper emotional level. And things that truly matter do not disappear instantly. They settle slowly, in their own time, until the heart is ready to release or re-understand them. So allow the thoughts without judgment. Do not force them away, but do not build your entire meaning around every appearance of them either. Let them come and let them pass, while you continue moving forward with your own life, one steady step at a time. Notice how you feel when this person appears in your mind. It is never just one single emotion. Sometimes it is calmness, sometimes warmth, sometimes a quiet sadness mixed with longing. At other times it may feel like comfort, or even hope that you cannot fully explain. Each of these feelings is not random. They are signals. They are telling you something about what this connection has meant to you on a deeper level. What is meant for you should never feel like something that constantly forces you to lose yourself in the process. Growth, yes. Patience, yes. Inner development, absolutely. But not self-abandonment. Not a state where your own emotional needs are consistently ignored or pushed aside while you wait in uncertainty. Whatever becomes of this connection, whether it slowly transforms into something real or gently fades with time, it is still shaping you. It is leaving lessons, awareness, and emotional understanding that you may not fully recognize yet. And if life ever brings the two of you back into alignment, it will likely happen in a way where both people have reached a place of emotional readiness, without fear standing in the middle. Until then, what you are experiencing still carries meaning, even if that meaning is not fully visible right now. When someone stays in your thoughts repeatedly, from the beginning of your day to the end of it, there is often something deeper happening beneath the surface of awareness. It does not always mean action will follow, but it often suggests emotional significance. Sometimes the other person may be experiencing similar thoughts, even if they never express them or fully admit them to themselves. Feelings are not always loud or obvious. Love does not always show itself through direct communication, immediate decisions, or clear expressions. Sometimes it exists quietly. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it holds itself back, not because it is weak, but because it feels uncertain about timing, direction, or outcome. The person you keep thinking about may carry real emotions for you. Those feelings could be deep, steady, and meaningful within them. But having emotions and being able to act on them are not always the same thing. Readiness and feeling do not always arrive together. A person can care deeply and still feel unprepared to move forward. They may see you as someone important, someone valuable, even someone they are afraid of losing or hurting. That awareness alone can create hesitation. They may feel you deserve something stable, something certain, something they are not fully able to offer at this moment in their life. They might also be carrying old emotional experiences that still influence how they respond to connection. Past disappointments, heartbreaks, or trust issues do not disappear quickly. They remain quietly present, shaping behavior and decision-making in ways that are not always visible from the outside. So instead of moving closer, they pause. Instead of expressing everything, they hold some of it back. Not always because the feeling is small, but sometimes because it is too strong, too meaningful, or too overwhelming to handle with full clarity. When emotions are light, people move without overthinking. They act quickly, speak freely, and take risks easily. But when emotions are deep and serious, everything slows down. People become more careful. They think more. They hesitate more. They start imagining outcomes, consequences, and responsibilities. And in that hesitation, love does not disappear. It often becomes quieter, more cautious, more contained. That is why distance can exist, even when emotion is still present. It is not always a sign that something is missing. Often, it is a sign that something inside them is conflicted. One part of them feels drawn toward you, while another part feels uncertain, afraid, or unprepared. This internal conflict creates a push and pull within them. On one side, there is connection, memory, and emotional pull toward you. On the other side, there is fear, responsibility, timing issues, or personal uncertainty pulling them back. And when those two forces exist at the same time, movement becomes difficult. So the silence, the distance, and the hesitation are not always the absence of feeling. Sometimes they are the result of feeling too much without knowing how to safely carry it forward. What matters most for you in all of this is not losing yourself inside the uncertainty. It is understanding what this experience is awakening within you. Your awareness of attachment, your emotional depth, your patience, and your ability to recognize what feels aligned and what does not. Because regardless of where this connection ultimately leads, it is already revealing something important about your inner world. And that understanding will stay with you long after the uncertainty fades. They may find themselves caught in a loop of difficult questions about the future, turning the same thoughts over again and again. What if I cannot give them the life they deserve? What if I end up hurting them? What if I ruin something that actually feels rare and meaningful? What if I am still not healed enough to love in the right way? What if my past is still silently influencing everything I try to build? What if getting closer creates more problems than peace? What if my emotions become too heavy to handle? What if I lose them completely because of my own fear? These thoughts are not signs of carelessness. They are not born from a lack of feeling. In fact, they come from the opposite place, from caring so deeply that the weight of it becomes hard to carry. Real emotion always comes with responsibility in the mind of someone who is afraid of repeating old pain. And because of that inner pressure, they may choose distance. Not distance as rejection of you, but distance as protection from the intensity of what they feel. It is not always about pushing you away. Sometimes It is about trying not to lose control of themselves inside something that feels too important, too quickly. In many cases, they are not stepping back because they do not want you. They step back because they are overwhelmed by how strongly they do. When feelings become too intense to process clearly, distance can feel like the only way to regain emotional balance. Some people have never learned how to stay fully present inside vulnerability without fear taking over. So instead of expressing everything openly, they hold back. Instead of moving closer with confidence, they pause. Silence becomes easier than emotional exposure. Distance feels safer than risking uncertainty. From your side, this can feel deeply confusing. It can make you question what is real and what is imagined. It can make you wonder whether the connection exists at all, or whether your mind is filling in the gaps. But genuine emotional connection does not always express itself in clean, consistent ways. It is often messy, hesitant, and unfinished in its expression. The person who cares but stays distant is often living in contradiction. They think about you in quiet moments throughout the day. They revisit memories. They imagine different possibilities between you. They feel pulled toward you, and then immediately pulled back by fear, doubt, or overthinking. This internal push and pull is not always visible, but it can be exhausting for them. Even if they never show it, they may be struggling with their own emotional conflict more than you realize. Many people in this state believe they need to become better before they can fully step into connection. They think they need to heal first, stabilize first, or become more certain before they are allowed to love properly. And in trying to protect you, they end up stepping away. But stepping away does not always end the feeling. It often leaves it unresolved. And what is unresolved does not simply disappear. It lingers quietly underneath silence, continuing to exist even when it is not expressed. Love in this form is not always visible through action. Sometimes it shows up as restraint, sometimes as hesitation, sometimes as someone silently trying to manage emotions they do not fully understand yet. And if you feel this connection deeply, it does not automatically mean it is imagined. Strong emotional bonds often exist in subtle ways, through memory, intuition, emotional imprint, and the impact someone leaves on your inner world. What feels painful right now may not be the absence of love. It may be the gap between feeling something deeply and being able to act on it clearly. Over time, internal fears can soften, emotional wounds can heal, clarity can grow. And as people change internally, what once felt impossible can begin to feel manageable. Until then, distance can act like a pause rather than an ending. A space where emotions are still present, but not yet fully expressed. Not every connection is meant to move in a straight line. Some arrive with clarity, while others come with distance, silence, and uncertainty. And in that space of uncertainty, the mind tries to find meaning, while the heart continues to feel what it felt. But no matter how strong a connection feels, it should never pull you away from your own peace, your growth, or your sense of self. What is truly meant for you will not require constant confusion or emotional suffering. It may require patience, timing, and understanding, but not the loss of yourself in the process. If this connection is real in a way that is aligned for both of you, life will bring clarity in its own time, when both hearts are ready and no longer driven by fear. And if it is not meant to continue in the way you imagine, then it will still have served a purpose in your life, teaching you, shaping you, and revealing the depth of your own emotional capacity. So instead of forcing answers that are not ready to appear, allow yourself to grow through the experience. Let the thoughts come and go without letting them define your entire present. What is meant to remain will remain, and what is meant to evolve will evolve. Either way, you are not losing yourself in this story. You are becoming more aware of who you are within it. And that awareness is where real emotional clarity eventually begins.